Hey, Daddy, this is the man of the champions, Bill Fonzie Alfonso, giving a shout out to
Something else.
something else, Daddy.
This is Nicole Matara, Great Warrior Wolf, and you are listening to Something Else.
I'm Tony Cini, and you're listening to Something Else.
Hey everybody, it's Rich Palladino, the voice of New England, and you are listening to Something Else with Arya.
And welcome to episode number 124 of Something Else. Feast your hair holes on this week's episode as we take a look at Mid-South Wrestling and World Class Championship Wrestling from September 17th, 1983. My name is Arya, and joining me, as always, is the Paul Bosch to my Boyd Pierce. It's Trey. Trey, how's it going today?
If I watch 4 to 6 hours of wrestling a day and never let a thought enter my head, it's not too bad.
Hey, there's a lot worse things in life. I just want to go a little bit off topic here to start the episode.
Us go off topic on this show? That's unprecedented.
I know this is going to be a new thing for us, where we talk about something that has nothing to do with the shows we're watching. But I was in a car accident yesterday, as I'm recording this, last Friday, as you're listening to this. For those familiar with the Providence Bridge and the construction that's been going on for the past 9 months at this point. So I'm driving to work yesterday, and there's a car ahead of me, and I am not an aggressive driver. I like to have a good car length plus between me and the car in front of me. And there was probably a good car length or two behind me. So I say this keeping in mind, there's plenty of space here in theory. However, it's also important to remember that it's 3 lanes. We're in the left lane, and the 2 lanes to our right, wall-to-wall cars. Like, it's 7:30 in the morning. People are going to work. It is what it is. So, and this is what the woman in front of me told me after the fact. A car pulled in front of the woman in front of me. I didn't see it because she's driving an SUV. I have a Nissan Versa, which is a much smaller vehicle. But the car pulled in front of her and slowed down, which, understandable. People do stupid ass shit. Well, the woman in front of me did not just slow down. She came to a complete fucking stop. So I apparently have great brakes. I managed to hit the brakes and come to a complete fucking stop without touching her. Unfortunately, the car behind me did not have the same luck, and they crashed right into the back of my car. I tapped her, and we had a little bit of a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 punch, as by the time it ended, 7 cars had hit into each other.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that part of the story. Damn.
Yeah. And I'm car number 2. Now, myself and the lady in front of me, we get out of the car and go check on everyone. The only person with any visible injuries, believe it or not, was the person in the 7th car, the last car. She was bleeding.
Oh, God.
Yeah. Now, my back hurt a little bit, but, we're going to give credit to adrenaline here because it wasn't that bad. And eventually the cops come, the ambulances come, and we're given the okay to leave. We're given the accident report, or at least the way to access the accident report. And our cars are working just fine. I actually looked at the back of my car. This is what I don't get to this day. I heard the crunching of the car behind me slamming into me. However, there is no damage to my car. Zero. If you went and looked at the back of my car, you'd have no idea that I was in a car crash yesterday because everything looks just fine, except my license plate is a little bent. That's it.
So is it just like there's no visible damage, or have you had it looked
Yeah.
at?
I was going to get it looked at today, but that I'm going to bring up here in a second.
Okay, yeah.
So I go to work because that's just me. By the way, I still get to work over 20 minutes early, which also just tells you that I left way too early to go to work. So I get to work, and within about 30 minutes, it becomes painfully obvious that I need to get checked out because the adrenaline's wearing off and my body is screaming at me. So I go to the hospital in Warwick, Rhode Island, and it's it didn't take as long as I figured going in, so we'll say hooray for that. But ultimately, I was sent home with muscle pain and a couple prescriptions for painkillers. And I was very happy for those painkillers, especially this morning. Now, the painkiller is cyclobenzaprine, which, in case you have no idea what that is, it is a great little painkiller along with prescription strength ibuprofen. Now, in addition to being a great painkiller, cyclobenzaprine is also a great sleeping aid, apparently, because every time I've taken one, it has put me to sleep, including this morning when I woke up in such insane amount of pain. Now, I slept 7 hours, a nice average amount, but I woke up in an intense amount of pain. And so when I eventually was able to get out of bed, because that was a struggle in and of itself, I took a pill, and an hour later, not only did the pain go away, but so did my ability to stay awake. So I took a nice 4-hour nap this morning after my 7 hours of sleep. And so, like I said, I was going to get my car checked out to make sure that there was nothing wrong with it. Unfortunately, I just couldn't get going this morning. And
That's fair.
Yeah. I did drive to the grocery store, and well, that at least that 10 minutes was okay. So fingers crossed, tap on wood. Hopefully I can make it until next Saturday and then take it to the garage.
Yeah,
But
well, do get your car checked out because there could be damage like underneath that you can't see that could cause serious problems.
oh, definitely. That's what my concern is right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I got my ass kicked yesterday, and hopefully, tap on wood, everything turns out a-okay.
Yeah, it's rough. Sorry, I hate that. I got rear-ended in January. It was a similar situation, except that like I was in a I was in the middle turning lane of a 5-lane road, just sitting there with my turn signal on, waiting for the light to change, and a car rear-ended me, and then I was pushed forward into the car behind me. But weirdly, I think my wife got like a little something was bleeding that was like didn't really make any sense, but it was like I can't remember exactly. There was something like she had a cut on her hand or her leg or something for some reason. That like was that from the wreck, but it happened. But yeah, that was yeah, it sucks. Luckily, and I have chronic back pain, so that really sucks. I actually got rear-ended one other time. It was WrestleMania weekend 2018 in New Orleans. We'd gone to the Ring of Honor show where Cody wrestled Kenny Omega, and we were like had driven all the way back. We were staying out in Kenner, which is like suburb of New Orleans. And it's funny, we had been at the arena at University of New Orleans, and then we left. We actually gave some friends a ride to their hotel on Bourbon Street, and then got back to our hotel out in Kenner, right in front of it, and got rear-ended. And then I had to go to the emergency room that night because that
Yeah.
one wrenched my back that was already fucked up.
I am
So yeah,
sorry to hear that.
getting rear-ended, no buys.
And that car must have really had some good momentum when it hit me too, because when we eventually got out, when I got out of the car, there were probably 2 car lengths between my car and the car that hit.
Yeah,
Like I really
that's
moved forward.
wow. Goddamn.
And oh yeah, by the way, the guy in the car that hit me, like when we were going around asking how everybody was, he said to both of us, "I'm not going to tell you that." It's like, okay.
Motherfucker, you're the one that did this.
Uh, honestly, I on the levels of blame I give everyone, he is at best second place. Because that woman who came to a complete stop, like, gets first place. Like again, that like, and the car that slowed down, like it. I don't know if it knew there was an accident, but that car did not stop, and just kept going on with their lives. Like, I do not blame the car for pulling ahead. I blame her for coming to a complete stop on the fucking highway.
Yeah, that's I don't know that like it. That could have been necessary, but it doesn't sound like it was in this situation. And if you do that when it's not necessary, it's just stupid.
Yeah. Oh well. Well, we're not going to end the show if we don't begin the show. So
Hold
let's.
on. I forgot. I usually do this on our pre-show, but the ritual. I gotta open my Sprite Zero.
Ah,
There
see,
we
I was rushing you, so I didn't let you open up your Sprite Zero. By the way, I took away the zero. I'm just drinking regular Sprite right
Yeah, that's cool. That's good stuff. Have you tried the Sprite Chill? I've been wanting to try that, but my grocery store is out of it every time I order groceries.
now. What is it? I don't.
It's like cherry lime Sprite. What? That sounds awesome.
That
What's not to
sounds
like about
awesome,
that?
but
Yeah.
I don't. I'm sure I've seen it, but I don't drink soda all that often. So just kind of, if I do, I just grab a bottle, um, in at the front of the aisle and just put it in my cart.
They'll have Sonic in New England.
Um, they don't have a lot of them. They actually do have one near my job, but I haven't eaten there yet. I have eaten at one in Hazleton, Pennsylvania when I lived down there.
So have you had a cherry limeade?
Maybe, but if I had, it was really long ago.
Nectar of the gods.
I will keep that in mind.
Yeah.
But by the way, me and a bunch of my fellow AEW heels are getting a private box at the Providence AEW Collision in November.
Oh, cool. That'd be cool.
Yes.
Are you
The
going?
day-
I know it. I actually kind of looked and I was going to ask you, and it was like 2 hours away. Are you going to go to the collision in Springfield?
No, that's a bit much for my blood. I am gonna go to the New Japan show in Lowell as well.
Jealous. Very
Yeah.
jealous.
Yep. Uh, I haven't checked it in a few days because shockingly I've got more important things to worry about right now. But the last time I checked, tickets were not selling well for that Lowell show.
Well, it's that issue where they don't want to. They will not announce cards until like the show before that sets everything up has happened.
Yeah.
So they're probably not going, like, they'll probably announce something, but they're probably not going to announce the bulk of the card until after Royal Quest in London on like the 20th
Probably.
of October. 20th of October, not November.
Yeah. When ZSJ wins the title and then retains it at
Yeah,
Royal Quest.
yeah, they've already announced he's wrestling Sanada at Royal Quest. So that's a, but and well, I'm gonna finish so we can get back on topic. But Sanada and Zack Sabre Jr. matches, I'm always a big fan of those.
I'm sure they're gonna have a great match.
Yeah. Anywho, but
So the funny thing is, I could have played the intro with Boyd Pierce and Jim Ross, while you opened your Sprite Zero. But who needs that when you can just wait for you to open it, and then we can go to the intro, Boyd Pierce and Jim Ross.
Yeah.
Fans, I'm Boyd Pierce, your host this week on another edition of Mid-South Wrestling. I hope you'll join us for the full 60 minutes. A lot of exciting action. You'll see the one-man gang returning to the Mid-South area. Also tag team action. The Mid-South tag team title holders, Hacksaw Jim Duggan and Magnum TA, in the ring against the rugged duo of King Kong Bundy and the Missing Link. The Junkyard Dog takes on the outdoorsman from the Minnesota Northwoods, Krusher Darsow. Hacksaw Butch Reed is here. You'll see all the action, and to tell you about it, one of the great commentators of all time, former wrestling referee, and now actively involved in the promotion of Mid-South Wrestling in Tulsa, Oklahoma, Jim Ross. Jim?
Boy, it's always great to be here, and of course, matchmaker Grizzly Smith has got another tremendous card. It's a great card with a great lineup of stars, and I think without further ado, Boyd, why don't we go to the ring with Reeser Bowden and the introductions now?
We're ready. Let's go.
I like that Jim Ross has been doing this like 5 times, and he's already one of the greatest announcers of all time.
Funny how that works, isn't it?
Yeah, especially when your other options are Boyd Pierce or Bill Mercer or Mark Lawrence.
Yeah.
Remember when he did commentary that one time?
Yeah, that was the first world-class show that I did, and I almost quit.
I somehow convinced you to do a second show. I don't know how to this day, but I managed to do that.
I'll never know.
So today it's the return of the one-man gang, Magnum TA and Jim Duggan versus King Kong Bundy and Max, Junkyard Dog versus Krusher Darsow, and Butch Reed has apparently stopped his walkout and will be in action this week. Remember in 2006, 2007, when LAX in TNA was doing a work stoppage angle, and Jim Cornette basically ended it by saying that a work stoppage means a check stoppage? That was a great line.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So that's this week's show, but we're going to start off with a big debut. It's Nicolai Volkoff versus John E. Rich. Now, by Nicolai Volkoff, I am referring to Nicolai Volkoff, but they spelled his name weird. They spelled it Nicoli. Like, he's a weird disease.
They spell a lot of names really weird on this show.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. So I note that we don't have enough large men in the territory. So today we're bringing back one-man gang and debuting Volkoff. And the funny thing is, we'll get to it, but this show, like with 2 exceptions, every heel is like 300 pounds plus. And the 2 exceptions aren't exactly small men either.
I'm just running through the Rolodex in my head.
Butch Reed and Max.
Oh yeah, Max. How could I forget Max?
Yeah. Volkoff wins with a backbreaker. Rich hasn't been squashed like this in a while, which makes me think that his push is over.
Boyd called this a match between 2 top stars in professional wrestling. And I don't think your lead announcer should ever blatantly lie to the audience. Shame on you, Boyd Pierce.
Boyd is a liar, damn it.
Ross also claimed that Volkoff was the Russian heavyweight champion.
Why not at this point?
It's well,
I mean,
is it any worse than the WWA heavyweight championship of the world?
Is it any worse than when Conan was in WCW and for like the first year he was always called the Mexican champion?
The funny thing was he was like it wasn't the AAA mega title, it was like whatever short-lived heavyweight title that AAA had in the 90s.
Yeah.
Remember when Stan Hansen had that run in 1990 in WCW?
Yeah.
They called him the Japanese heavyweight champion, and it was the fucking Triple Crown.
See, I knew that Conan was a champion, but it's like it never really was explained what this was. They just kept calling him the Mexican champion. And, me being me back in 1996, I would have loved to know what the hell they were talking about. Because I could be wrong, but I don't even think he ever came out with a belt.
I don't even know if there was a belt. I think they did like a title match with him and, I don't know, Psychosis on some Clash or pay-per-view or something that was built as for the Mexican title.
I think they did. They may have done a couple of those because he was at the same time he was the Mexican and the U.S. champion.
Yeah.
But then after he lost the U.S. title to Flair, I believe, he randomly turned heel and joined the Dungeon of Doom, and then would just have random matches with luchadors for the Mexican title.
Funny because in 1990, Stan Hansen was the Japanese champion and the United States champion, so they had a trope there.
And then, unlike with Conan, they had to find a way to have Hansen lose the U.S. title without actually getting beaten. So they did a bull rope match with Luger.
Indeed.
All right. Now, remember last week when we said that Dusty Rhodes was going to be here this week? Well,
yes,
he is and he isn't. Let's go to Jim Ross, who's going to talk about something that happened in Houston, Texas.
Wrestling fans on September the
Wrestling fans, I don't know why they paused.
Sam Houston Coliseum was a great night of Mid-South wrestling action, but one of the highlights on that card was scheduled to be a match between the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes, and from Atlanta, Larry Zbyszko. Larry Zbyszko has scouted all the great talent in the Mid-South area, and for some reason, he failed to appear on that night on September the 9th in Houston. Dusty Rhodes received a victory for that match, a forfeited victory, but on the scene came King Kong Bundy. And as you wrestling fans know, King Kong Bundy and Dusty Rhodes have long had a feud, and King Kong Bundy said, "You're not going to get out of here that easily, and I challenge you to a match." Well, knowing the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes, as we all do, he accepted that challenge. But little was he to know that Dusty Rhodes had a plan set upon him by the Big Mountain King Kong Bundy, as he had the one-man gang standing in the wings. It was an exciting match. It was narrated by Paul Bosch, and let's go to Houston, Texas now for the edited highlights of that match.
All right, so we were supposed to get Dusty Rhodes versus Larry Zbyszko from Menominee, but Zbyszko no-showed, so Bundy challenges him. Dusty accepts, and we have a match with Paul fucking Bosch doing commentary. What did I do in life to get Paul Bosch doing commentary on my television station?
I just feel so bad for the people of Houston who didn't get to see Larry Zbyszko from the Menominee. The next time the city of Houston would be that disappointed was when I moved here.
They were going to say it was when the Astros cheated to win the World Series.
When did they cheat?
When they banged the trash cans.
Oh, I have no idea.
I love that you don't know or give two shits about sports.
I don't, and my wife has been to like multiple Astros games. She went to one like last weekend. Like she went to one last Friday, and I was at home watching Collision and Rampage.
I was going to ask if she ever drags you along, but apparently not so much.
No, she goes with friends from work.
I will say that Paul Bosch being here does end the streak that every time Paul Bosch is on my television screen, so is Gino Hernandez. Coincidence or not. But Gino was not on this week's show.
What a shame.
I know, right? So one-man gang ran in for the DQ, and the two very fat men double-teamed the other fat man. Magnum TA runs it for the save and gets his ass kicked, so Dusty makes the save for his protege. Duggan runs in to make it 3-on-2 advantage baby faces, and finally the baby faces prevail and stand tall over the two overwhelmed heels.
It is strange to see Magnum kind of treated the way he is here, because you always associate Magnum as like his run in 85, 86 Crockett, where he would have never been treated like that.
I know. This is what happens when the booker doesn't take you under his wing.
Yeah.
So one-man gang with General Skandor Akbar back in Shreveport versus Ron Ellis. Gang is announced as 387 1/2 pounds. I have my doubts here. I say he's easily over the 400-pound mark.
Yeah, he looked it.
Gang wins with what was called the Country Slam, which is just a running power slam and a big splash. Nothing to write home about, just your standard, ordinary garden variety squash match.
Yeah, this was a nothing match, but I will note that I have always thought that the One Man Gang is like an all-time great wrestling name.
Indeed, it is. And it's funny because when he debuted here, I think he debuted in January of '83 or sometime around there. They didn't have a name for him and we're just calling him this One Man Gang, and that just became his actual name.
Awesome. Ron Garvin had already been the One Man Gang in like Knoxville and stuff, hadn't he?
Yes.
But it was a nickname. It wasn't his name.
Correct. Garvin was doing that in the late '70s, I want to say.
Now Ron Garvin is a badass, but based solely on visually, our friend, the former Crusher Broomfield here, looks much more like a One Man Gang.
Yes. At least until he gets shot on by Roadblock. Then he needs a two-man gang.
Oh, yeah. By the way, it's bizarre to see him with so much hair, because I always think of him in the WWF in the late 80s and the WCW in the 90s when he had like the fucking mohawk.
Yeah. I could be wrong, but I think he has a hair match, and that's how he uses the hair.
Well, that's good.
I think. By the way, remember that awful Australia show that Dennis Rodman wrestled Kurt Hennig on, that they released a $1 DVD on? That was like the best-selling DVD in wrestling history because it was sold at Walmart for $1.
Better than Grandmasters of Wrestling Volume 1?
I think they were going neck and neck. But anyway, don't ask me why I remember this. But One Man Gang comes out to wrestle Tatanka, and he's wearing a shirt that says "Join the Chain Gang." And my first thought was the crowd then started chanting "Cena sucks." Because yeah. We get highlights of last week's awful Junkyard Dog King Kong Bundy match with 3 finishes. I was shocked that they aired this. Like, that was not the highlight of the Mid-South run.
No, it was interesting choices made.
Yeah. We then get tag team champions Jim Duggan and Magnum TA versus King Kong Bundy and Max with General Skandor Akbar. I note that Max is the smallest heel we've seen on this show so far. They get the heat on TA. Max has the least success of either of the heels, and Bundy's needed to take control of the situation, but he does miss an elbow drop, leading to Duggan getting the hot tag. Duggan knocked Bundy down without issue. Max conferred with Akbar, who was happy to stand on the apron while his partner got his ass kicked. Duggan backdropped and speared Bundy. Max comes off the top rope with a diving headbutt for the disqualification. Keep that in mind. Bundy squishes TA and Duggan empties the ring, and the champs again are left standing tall.
My favorite fucking finish. Absolute favorite.
Oh, if that's not enough, was it on this show or the next show? It might be the next show. I don't remember.
By the way, the announcers are just straight up calling him Max now. So clearly, Boyd Pierce and Jim Ross in 1983 were using some kind of temporal ham radio to listen to our show. They knew what was up.
Obviously. And, I think, I say it shows great wokeness on behalf of JR and Boyd to be using someone's preferred name.
Yeah, JR has always been surprisingly woke.
Yeah. We get highlights of Jim Duggan beating Ted DiBiase in the Ted DiBiase must leave town if he loses match, which By the way, I haven't actually looked, but that might be the last time we get the Road Warriors here in Mid-South, at least for a while.
Maybe. I think they do a handful of house show matches, but I think that might have been it for TV.
Junkyard Dog versus Krusher Darsow. Darsow is 303 pounds and is wearing his cutoff baggy Daisy Dukes. Dog is around 315, 320, and wearing his standard red tights. Referee Pee Wee Anderson is about 125 pounds and wearing his standard black and white striped shirt. And I think you could tell I was not terribly into this match. But we do find out that later today, we're going to have the debut of Jim the Anvil Neidhart, of all people.
Of all people.
Darsow got to look strong here. The finish saw Darsow get him up for the over-the-shoulder backbreaker, but Dog basically got out of it with a sunset flip of all things, and then pinned Darsow after a thump, ending Darsow's undefeated streak at like 3.
Okay, this match was not very good, but Dog countering out a Canadian backbreaker the way he did was pretty nifty. It's kind of surprising for Dog to do some. Do you think that an actual Junkyard Dog got a hold of Darsow's jeans and that's why they look like that?
That might explain next week's angle.
It might.
Yeah.
By the way, we, believe it or not, we'll see the Road Warriors on TV one more time in November.
Say what?
Yeah, and then it's like a shot in New Orleans and Houston, and then a shot in New Orleans, and then a Houston shot and a Superdome in '85, and then that's it until it's the UWF and Crockett are all the same thing.
Not booking the Road Warriors in Mid-South is easily the worst thing Grizzly Smith has ever done.
Yeah, this week anyway.
Yeah. North American champion Butch Reed versus George Weingroff's penis. Reed hasn't been here for 2 weeks due to a lack of competition, but showing you how much we suck Weingroff's dick on this show, wrestling George Weingroff was enough to bring Butch Reed back to the territory.
It was hard. It was hard to maintain my suspicion of disbelief in this match because we know if wrestling was real, George Weingroff's penis would be the North American champion.
Oh yeah, and I don't know how much he had to be paid to take a dive here, but you know, he took one for the team. He did the right thing for business.
Very professional.
Yes. I did note, and I know like who really keeps track of such things, but I really liked the way Butch Reed fell into the ropes in order to spring off with the shoulder block. It's like it wasn't just hitting the ropes like he normally would. It's like he stood with his back to them and fell into them like a trust fall, and then springing off with the shoulder block.
Butch Reed, pretty good at this wrestling bullshit, it turns out.
Write that shit down. So then we get the debut of Jim the Anvil Neidhart versus Art Cruz. And this was not Jim Neidhart, right?
Okay. When I first saw young Jim Neidhart, my first thought was, what is Cash Wheeler doing here and why is he so swollen?
Imagine Cash Wheeler if he gained about 50 to 75 pounds of fat. And that is what Jim Neidhart looks like.
Like dead on, exactly. Like the same gear, the same fucking like hair and beard. It's just a little portly.
Yes, it's important to note that Jim Neidhart does not have his goatee yet. He just has a buzz cut and just a regular beard.
Like Cash Wheeler.
Yes. He's allegedly 290 pounds, but I wasn't believing that either. He's, at least a 300-pounder here. They shook hands, and Neidhart immediately drop-kicked him. And, oh boy, I think the minis who are on TNA could get higher on the dropkick. I think John Tenta could get higher on the dropkick. Then he won with, of all things, a Samoan drop.
Indeed it was. Not to jump the gun, but next week he does that move, and it doesn't have the name Samoan Drop yet, but Watts actually says it reminds me of the Samoans. So was funny.
Speaking of the Samoans, I showed you the angle from January of '82 when the Samoans joined up with Akbar and turned on Ernie Ladd, who was their manager at the time. And you know it because it starts with Ernie getting in Boyd Pierce's face and Boyd Pierce showing some chutzpah and essentially telling him to fuck off.
Yeah.
What were your thoughts on that tremendous angle?
I'd never seen Boyd Pierce with that much starch in his drawers. That was the main takeaway. No, it was pretty cool. I wonder what the follow up was. It was a good angle. I was curious as to where it went. One of these days, when we finish all this shit, I'll go back and backtrack and watch everything leading up to when I started.
Once we finish, we have to start over so you can watch everything again. But the aftermath of that, now keep in mind, Ernie Ladd was a heel, and this was him turning babyface. He offered Junkyard Dog money to be his partner to wrestle the Samoans, and Junkyard Dog turned him down because, he's a despicable heel. Dog is the beloved babyface. And Ernie Ladd doesn't last too long because he's beat up. And with that said, Ernie Ladd's going to be I think he's a top babyface next year in Mid-South.
At 84?
Yeah.
Oh man, they must have been must be hard times coming.
Which is funny because that's what many believe to be the best year of Mid-South ever.
Yeah, it's what I was thinking, that the whole Watts Cornette feud draws fucking the biggest that Mid-South ever drew.
Yeah. So then we get technically our main event, our last match of the show, Tom Stanton versus Jerry Caldwell. Now, Tom Stanton, from what I can tell, and this could just be a coincidence or not, but appears to have driven down from Calgary with Neidhart, because before this, he was in Stampede.
Okay.
Stanton has Ultimate Dream written on his ass, and he worked as if Ultimate Warrior and Velveteen Dream had a baby. To put it a little more bluntly, Stanton sucks dick. He is proof that even in this era where all you need to get a booked and a pushed is size, he is proof that you need more than just size to get booked in pro wrestling and get a push.
I'm sorry. Of all of the expiration of time matches that ever expired, this one was the most expirational.
And it didn't even go to the expiration of time. He won with a side slam and a 4 count.
I almost expired watching this.
Who is he, Prince Kong Bundy?
Why did nobody ever do that gimmick? It's brilliant.
At one point, he does a jumping punch to the face to Caldwell, who is 6 inches shorter than Stanton.
You know what? Boris Zirkov should have been Prince Kong Bundy.
He might have done better than being a fake Russian.
Yes.
And next week, we're told that 2 of the most popular girl wrestlers will be here.
In retrospect, that feels more like a threat than a promise.
Oh, wait till next week. I can't even blame them for the match next week. I mean, I guess I can, but they didn't do commentary on the match. But that brings us to an end of Mid-South this week. Overall, the show was all right. Nothing to write home about, but it helps set up what's coming next, which sadly we're going to get worse before we get better, because the invasion of the big guys is still forthcoming.
It's almost Thanksgiving. 2 more months. Things are going to start to turn around.
Yes, indeed. So from here we go 190 miles west to the Sportatorium in Dallas, Texas for World Class Championship Wrestling. Now I should note that my typical source for these shows didn't put this particular episode up on YouTube, so I had to watch it on Peacock. And Peacock, as we've learned while trying to do the show before, is temperamental. And thus there'll be no audio from this week's World Class, although to be honest, there really wasn't anything to play.
Yeah.
We had the intro with Bill Mercer. Today it's going to be Brody versus Terry Gordy. And remember when Jim Garvin became the American champion and he said he'd wrestle every week? Well, once he wrestled Chris Adams, he had a change of heart. So today we'll have a replay of Gentleman Chris Adams and Gentleman Jim Garvin next on World Class Championship Wrestling. Why couldn't they retape this when he called Jim Garvin Gentleman Jim Garvin? Because he realized he fucked up while he was saying.
I don't know. I don't know why Bill Mercer does anything that he does.
Well, maybe I'm wrong. I don't know who's in charge of producing the show, but it wasn't up to Bill Mercer to retape the opening. It was up to whoever the hell. I blame Fritz. Like, why the hell didn't he get that retaped? Because it's not like they were in front of the fans. They were like, he was in front of his green backdrop that you can see far in the background sometimes during shots in the Sportatorium.
I think when in doubt, just in life, for someone to blame, you can blame Fritz.
Or in this case, can we still blame Grizzly Smith?
Yeah, the production on this World Class show was the worst thing Grizzly Smith has ever done.
There we go. So they replayed the entire Chris Adams, Jim Garvin 10-minute time limit draw last week, which gave me the chance to just press the fast forward button.
Me too.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with the match, just that, I didn't want to watch it again.
No.
Then once we came back, we had American champion Jim Garvin with Sunshine versus Iceman King Parsons. And we're informed that coming up in the near future, World's Heavyweight Champion Harley Race will be here in World Class Championship Wrestling. And we also find out that the American Heavyweight Champion is typically the first person in line to challenge the World Champion. So it gives us a bit of a storyline here where, hey, these two guys, or whoever the American champion is, might be getting a shot at the world title. So, it's important that somebody get in line and beat Garvin if they want a shot at Harley Race.
It'd be really funny if they had the world champion scheduled for like the week after Thanksgiving.
That's probably when it is, to be honest. I didn't even look it up, but
I didn't either, but that's what I hope happens now.
The first 5 minutes of this match were 95% Iceman, and Garvin was glistening like a man fighting for his life. But also there was no AC in the Sportatorium, so yeah. The finish saw Garvin go for a suplex, but Iceman awkwardly turned that into a small package for the win in this non-title match. So Iceman has a win over the American champion. Chris Adams has not a loss over the American champion. If this was 2024, it would lead to a triple threat match, but we don't know what a triple threat match is yet, so it will not lead to that.
Parsons is so strange to watch because, he's not completely worthless. He looks great when he's making a comeback on a heel who's bumping and selling for him. Mm-hmm. It's just that everything else he does is so fucking boring. And this whole match was mostly him doing shit and being boring.
Yes. This is a poor matchup. We'll just say that. And I mean, I get, because we sit here and we obviously complain when we have Kerry Von Erich versus Michael Hayes every week, and for good reason. But, this is an example of a pairing that, hey, it was an idea to put two different people against each other, but this wasn't the best idea.
Tell you what, after 5 minutes of Kerry Von Erich and Mr. Ebony, I was pining for another Kerry and Michael Hayes match.
Oh Lord, yeah, we got our wish this week. We got some new matches, and we you know, we paid for it. Kerry Von
Hey,
Erich. Okay,
Kerry remembered his boots this week.
there you go. Kerry Von Erich versus Mr. Ebony with General Skandor Akbar and the Mongol. During his introduction, Mr. Ebony was bent through the ropes talking to the Mongol on the floor. So this was just us staring at his ass while Akbar trying to give him the Iggy to stand up and face the camera, which I thought was funny.
Yeah.
Now, I got to ask you, what do you think Mr. Ebony's first name is? Is it Don? Maybe Steven? Alistair? Maybe, Alistair Ebony has a ring to it.
That's actually a terrific name, Alistair Ebony.
If either of us get into wrestling, that should be our name.
If I ever get rich enough to have a butler, I'm gonna change his name to Alistair Ebony.
Please, in this case, it's 2024. Please don't hire an African American gentleman to be your butler and call him Mr. Ebony.
Oh, absolutely not. No.
So in one of those moves that can only happen in 1983 wrestling that would lead to no one questioning it, Ebony is standing in the middle of the ring. He is standing flat-footed. Kerry Von Erich is running off the ropes. And when they collide, the move is Kerry giving Ebony a hip toss. How?
I'm starting to wonder if this wrestling bullshit is on the up and up.
I don't know. It feels like it might be fake.
Well, George Weingroff's penis would be the world champion.
Yeah. If this was UFC, George Weingroff's penis would have tapped everybody out by now.
George Weingroff's penis would have beat Brock Lesnar.
Yes. And that was Brock before the diverticulitis. George Weingroff's penis would have beat Brock's diverticulitis out of him.
Oh, I don't want to think about somebody's penis taking the diverticulitis out of somebody.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did we go too far talking about George Weingroff's penis here? Speaking of penis, Kerry was winning a test of strength, and the camera angle they showed made it look like something very naughty was happening. I don't want to
the
alarm
Hogan Ultimate Warrior spot.
Yes. I don't want to alarm anyone, but this Kerry Von Erich was quite popular with the fans.
Yeah.
Kerry won with a snap power slam, or as Bill Mercer called it, a flying body. Okay, then.
Oh, I didn't even catch that. That's amazing.
The Mongol hit the ring post-match and did such a poor job that Kerry made his own comeback, and all three heels ran for, and I quote Bill Mercer, the sands of safety. You see, Akbar is Arab.
Have the Von Erichs like ever needed to be saved? Like they make their own comeback, or in an extreme case, one of them will save the other one.
Every so often, the Iceman has run out to make the save, but yeah, it's either them by themselves or another Von Erich.
I just I've been working my way through the 1993 Wrestling Observer Yearbook. I just read the whole saga of Kerry Von Erich's death the last couple of days. And number one, that's why I just want to blame Fritz for everything. And I got a lot of perspective on the stuff we've been watching. And I mean, just watching that it's like, is protected the word, is over pushed? They're not really over pushed. It's just they are booked in a way that I don't even know if it's wrong. It's just ridiculous.
Fritz had an obsession to make his boys bigger stars than he was, and to get one of them the world title. And it killed them, literally.
If only Fritz had been one of those parents that couldn't stand for his kids to be more successful than him, they might have lived longer.
They may have been doing jobs for Johnny Mantel, is what you're saying.
I don't know if it would have been that bad.
Johnny Mantel would have been the American champion, just so you know.
I'm honestly surprised he's not. It gets worse.
Oh yeah,
Or
he's going to be on Mid-South next year.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, at least his brother's not the fucking booker.
Yet. Up next, a special feature on the Von Erichs versus the Freebirds. Once upon a time, they were all friends. However, that fell apart rather quickly when Michael Hayes was guest referee for Christmas night in a cage. If you don't remember, you will. Now. So, I'm sorry, I had to, since we don't have any audio, I have to do my Bill Mercer impression.
Even I remembered, and I didn't even see it when it happened.
I was -2 years old when it
happened. Yeah, but you saw it. You saw it 9 months ago, at least.
Actually, here's where it gets funny. I didn't, because we didn't start watching World Class until March. Because one week in March, Mid-South was just like an absolute nothing happening show, and I knew I couldn't even get 30 minutes out of reviewing it. So I watched World Class from the same day, and that's how this happened. But actually, Mid-South, either in January or February, aired the finish of the match.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. For no reason, because Flair... I actually, that's a lie. I think the Von Erichs randomly appeared. Oh, yeah, because they did the Von Erichs versus the Freebirds on one of the Superdome shows. But, like, yeah, so they randomly aired the finish of the Kerry Flair cage match, which is when you find out that the finish was not when Terry Gordy slammed the cage door on Kerry's head. The match went on for another 5 or 10 minutes before the referee just stopped the match.
Well, you can't just have Kerry fucking lose even after you hit him with a nuclear weapon.
Yeah. So, yeah, they show the famous angle. It popped the territory. They showed a handcuff match. I forget if you were here when this happened or not, but
no,
we had a handcuff match earlier this year. And yeah, this was done because they must not have filmed very much for this episode, because we had to fill this shit up this week.
Yeah, there was a lot of filler this week.
Well, Bruiser Brody took on Terry Gordy in our main event. They could not and would not wait for the match introductions, as they just started fighting each other. But Mark Lawrence, goddammit, he has a job to do. And it doesn't matter if the match is already happening and he's on the floor. Mark Lawrence will fucking introduce these people, whether you like it or not.
At least he got out of the ring. Fucking Boyd Pierce would have still been standing there.
Yes, he would have. Brody would have murdered Boyd Pierce. Maybe that's how Boyd Pierce leaves wrestling.
This was great while it lasted. It just only lasted 4 minutes.
All right. So the story, and this is going to continue for apparently more than 1 week, is Terry Gordy went to Professor, please tell me if you wrote down something differently, Professor Seen Fu, who apparently had given Professor Toru Tanaka his skills and has apparently given Gordy something called the Orient Spike.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I don't know if Sifu is a name or like a title. I remember you ever see that movie Dragon, the Bruce Lee story?
I did not.
I really liked that movie when I was a kid, so I watched it a bunch, but I remember young Bruce Lee calls his sensei Sifu. So I wonder if that's like a title rather than a name.
Well, that might be where they got this from.
Yeah, they got that from the here in 1983. They got that from the movie that came out in 1993.
Oh, well, then it probably isn't that. Thank you for making me look like an idiot here on my podcast.
That's what I'm here for.
I believe it. Yeah, it did come out in 1993. God damn it. So anywho, this was your standard fantastic match of giant men clubbering one another. I note that it's amazing to see just how much Bruiser Brody stole from the Berserker. Brody wins with a flying crossbody. Gordy attacks after the match, jamming his thumb into Brody's throat, which is apparently the Orient Spike. Referee Jerry Usher began counting to 5, threatening to disqualify Gordy after the match that he had lost. Anyway, Brody was left bloodied, but then tried to make a comeback, but that didn't work, and Usher got as high as counting to 8 before Gordy took this seriously and broke the hold.
Was it Jerry? I thought it was Bronco Lubick. In fact, I wrote fucking useless Bronco Lubick.
See, I thought they said Jerry Usher was the referee at the start of the match. Because I thought it was Bronco Lubick too, but I could swear they'd said Jerry Usher.
Well, far be it from me to suggest that Bill Mercer could ever make a mistake.
Yes. Well, whomever the referee was completely fucking useless.
That sounds like Bronco Lubick.
Yes. No matter who the hell the referee is, why were they counting after the match ended?
It's so dumb. It's so ridiculous.
What punishment would Terry Gordy have received if he did not break the Orient Spike by the count of whatever he was counting to? Because, like I said, he got to 8 at one point.
He could have been disqualified in the match that he already got pinned in.
He could have lost twice. He could have lost. Brody might have gotten paid twice for his win here. That would have happened.
Brody probably would have demanded to be paid twice.
Yeah. And he would have gotten it too.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
So we go to commercial. We come back where Bill Mercer said that he attempted to interview Bruiser Brody to find out what the fuck happened. However, Brody basically had better things to do and told Bill to fuck off. So Mercer had to end the show by himself. Actually, they end the show with a Freebird promo. We find out that next week, Kerry and Kevin are going to wrestle Mr. Ebony and the Mongol. I almost said Mr. Mongol and the Ebony, which I don't know. Would that be a better name than Mr. Ebony and the Mongol?
Maybe. I know. The Ebony's a pretty cool name.
Yes. David was supposed to be in this tag team match next week, but he is injured. Buddy Roberts said the Spike is worse than the Sleeper or anything else we'll see. Actually, I wrote he said that it was worse than the Sheeper, but I'm pretty sure he meant Sleeper. And Gordy was very confident that he would win thanks to the thumb.
Okay, I have a question.
I hope I have an answer.
Does Terry Gordy have a little blonde mustache right now, or does his upper lip just look like that?
I think he has a little mustache.
I hope so.
He's had it for a few months now, actually. Of course, he's been gone for a while in the Orient, where he was learning how to do the Orient Spike. I gotta say,
blonde dudes with mustaches can be a hard sell.
Now, you're a Japanese wrestling historian, so you must tell us, back in the early 1980s, was Japanese wrestling just one nerve hold after another? Because watching American wrestling, that's what I'm led to believe Japanese wrestling is.
No, Japanese wrestling absolutely was not what Americans made Japanese wrestling to be at the time.
So it wasn't one Japanese nerve hold after another?
It's like hardly any of their Japanese wrestlers were like actually Japanese, like at least not any star, like, fucking Mr. Fuji, Professor Toru Tanaka.
Yokozuna.
Yeah, Mr. Fuji's from fucking Hawaii, which he is Neisei, like a American-born Japanese. And I don't know, you get Masa Saito later in the 80s. But it's just, no, it's because All Japan at this time is very All Japan up to the late 80s is just a very like you would recognize it as an NWA territory. That was the style. It
I mean,
starts to change in the late 80s when once first Crockett gets a monopoly on the NWA title, and then there's the transition to Turner buying it, and at the point that All Japan didn't have access to the NWA World Champion anymore, that's when Baba decided to create his own world title and form the Triple Crown, and then that as we get into the 90s is when they transition away from being a very traditional NWA territory into the Kings Road era.
now you've been reading the 1993 Observer Yearbook. Did you read the 1989 Observer Yearbook?
Have not.
Okay, so you may already know this, so I may just be telling you things you already know. But there was one final blow up between, well, I guess the company that used to be Jim Crockett Promotions and All Japan, because there was a Clash of the Champions in February of 1989. It was the Road Warriors and Tenru. I forget who they were supposed to wrestle. I think they were supposed to wrestle Sting, Michael Hayes, and the Junkyard Dog. But they did an angle where those three got locked into a dressing room and the Varsity Club came out. And they had a 4-minute match until the baby faces got out of the dressing room and ran in. And this was considered so disrespectful to fly Tenru in for such a bullshit 4-minute match that there was massive heat between All Japan and WCW, for lack of a better phrase. And that was then followed up because Ricky Steamboat then wins the NWA title, spoiler alert, in February of 1989. And All Japan gets some dates on him, but books him in the mid card instead of in main events.
Wow.
So it was a 1-2 punch right after another that ended that relationship.
It's interesting. Steamboat wrestled Tiger Mask Misawa on that tour.
I believe it, but apparently it was a mid card match, even though, like, if you said Ricky Steamboat wrestled Mitsuharu Misawa, that's a fucking dream match that actually happened. But in 1989, not so much.
Yeah, kind of like the Brett and Misawa match that happened that just due to like some combination of jet lag and unfamiliarity and Misawa coming off a knee injury just wasn't very good.
It was not a match that you would expect Bret Hart and Mitsuharu Misawa to have with each other. I always say I need to watch more classic Misawa, which I guess is easier to do than watching modern day Misawa for many, many reasons.
Yeah, it's not I've been watching a fair bit of Noah this year and I haven't seen Misawa wrestle once. So.
That lazy ass founder.
R.I.P. Mitsuharu Misawa, one of the all-time greats.
So
Okay.
somehow we're only like 58 minutes into the show and we've pretty much come to the end. Anything you want to talk about?
Just looking at this fucking All Japan tour that Steamboat was on, and he's like third from the top, but he's wrestling fucking like Shinji Takano and Tiger Mask in tag matches. And then let's see they were the semi-main at the Budokan. They were under Tenru and the Road Warriors against Jumbo and our old friend Tolayatsu and Shinji Takano.
Well, I guess it was. They looked at it as they wouldn't have treated Flair like this. I guess it's how it's.
I get it. The placement. Flair would be semi-main event a lot of the time, even when he was champion, because they usually wanted to put the Japanese on last. Like even when they did the NWA champion Flair against the AWA champion Martel, like that was the semi-main. But yeah, I get what they're saying in that Flair would have been working fucking Jumbo. He wouldn't have been working Shinji Takano.
So how was that Noah show today? Or when was it? Was it today?
It was today. It's pretty nice show. It's a Korakuen show, which is always fun. I just counted. I have watched 32 Korakuen Hall shows this year, and that's Korakuen Hall shows from 2014 or from 2024, not any other that may have snuck in like older ones.
So watching Bound for Glory 2014 32 times didn't count?
No, it has been let's see, it was one was the NTV celebration of like 70 years of pro wrestling on NTV. One of them was the Marigold debut show. Then there was like 10 Noah shows and the rest were New Japan shows. But still, yeah, it was so the main event today, it was Ryohei Oiwa's final Noah match. He's been on excursion there for the last year. Wrestled Kaito Kiyomiya. They started out as partners, and then Kiyomiya teamed up with Keno to form All Rebellion, and Oiwa felt betrayed, so they've been at odds since. And it was they had a fucking tremendous match during the N1. This match was not quite there wrestling wise, but there was like a level of animosity that was higher, and it just in some way it felt a little more like a grudge match. But yeah, it was kind of the inevitable. The only problem with it was you knew Oiwa wasn't gonna win, and he kicked out a fucking Shining Wizard, got a rope break on a second Shining Wizard, and then Kaito beat him with, of all things, a Gibson leg lock.
Nice. Nice throwback to our current Smoky Mountain stuff. Actually, not even current anymore. Last month's Smoky Mountain stuff.
But yeah,
I googled Korakuen Hall so I could get the correct spelling, and one of the Google suggestions that people also ask is Korakuen Hall a real place?
Why would people not think Korakuen Hall is a real place?
I don't know. Why did people think Slash from Guns N' Roses wasn't a real person? Well, that actually
I didn't know that was a thing either.
That was a South Park joke. Was that Slash isn't real, that he's just one of our parents dressing up like him.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah, I remember that from 1,000 years ago.
1,000 years ago. Wow.
Yeah.
Let's see. I think if we're just actually, before we go, I do want to address something. So I put up on our YouTube channel, why aren't you listening to this show? And I think after the next 5 minutes, I might have to put up a new option of, because when we gave you an opinion, you bitched about it. So the prevailing theory is there are too many podcasts already, which is, an understandable complaint. But the other than Who Are You, the main complaints that I'm seeing are the reviews should not be longer than the episode we're reviewing. And I would point out that typically they're not, because if you took out all of the excess that we discuss, the shows are far longer than how long we actually review them, which probably isn't saying much, but still. And then the other one was, somehow my audio isn't great, but yours is.
Huh.
I don't get it.
That's interesting.
Yes. So you need to teach me what your audio is, because apparently it's much better than mine. By the way,
it is a $50 microphone from Best Buy.
By the way, second place behind Why Don't You Listen to the Show is You Suck. Now, you might be wondering why I gave You Suck as an option, but, I just feel in order to be completely fair, You Suck needed to be an option.
So what do we do? Do we do shorter reviews? Do we suck less? Do we get better audio?
I would say, at least for now, we should suck less.
No promises.
Yeah. By the way, WWE Vault's YouTube page is airing a full episode of WCW Saturday Night for some reason.
From when?
I don't know. I just clicked on it, and Eric Bischoff is calling somebody in off camera, and whoever the hell they are aren't coming in. Oh, we're going now to somebody walking in the dark. It's somebody in a bullshit suit wearing glasses. Maybe I should turn up the audio so I can hear what this is and who this is. But somebody wearing glasses and a gray suit is on TV talking to Eric Bischoff right now.
Okay, I'm watching this now. Who the fuck is this guy?
That's what I'm talking about.
I don't know. Is this somebody? Should we know who he is, or is this just?
Well, they just moved to Ric Flair, who is
I know who that is.
Okay, so this is post Clash of Champions in August of '94 because this is when they did the Nancy Kerrigan angle with Hulk Hogan.
Yeah.
And yeah, here comes Hogan because this was supposed to be when like they were doing the 3-match series where Hogan would win and then Flair was going to win the belt back here, but Hogan, who claimed he never uses creative control, uses creative control to not have Flair beat him for the belt. So they did like a count out finish.
Doesn't work for me, brother.
Yeah. And then it turned out that Brutus Beefcake was the person who injured Hulk Hogan, which led to our epic Starrcade main event of Hulk Hogan versus Brutus Beefcake.
The Butcher.
Yes.
By the way, far inferior to today's Butcher that's in AEW.
Yes, even if you're not a fan of the Butcher and the Blade, you can say that they are much better than Ed Leslie.
And I am a fan of the Butcher and the Blade. I think they're a very underrated tag team.
I think they're also very nice people, but they may not want me to say that.
Just the Blade had successful back surgery the other day, so want to wish him well.
Good for him. You know, we're happy for him. Hopefully, everything works out for him there.
I've always really wanted them to do a New Japan tour. Like, I think they'd be awesome in a World Tag League.
Hey, well, I guess if Blade just had surgery, it may not be anytime soon.
It'll be a while.
So
come on, they sent the Gates of Agony last year.
Oh boy. No offense to them, but oh boy. Now, it's funny because like when I think of the Butcher and the Blade, I think about that awful debut they had where they attacked Cody, and it was such a surprise that they put hashtag Butcher Blade Bunny on the screen before they even came out.
I was at the Dynamite the next week when they wrestled Cody and QT Marshall.
Was it any? I'm assuming it was good.
That was the first time I ever saw QT do the Sasuke special, which is like, it's kind of hilarious because he did it bad, but you could tell, like, he did it bad so well that you could tell he did it bad on purpose.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
I just remember the Blade coming out and Excalibur just saying, "It's the Blade." Like, you're supposed to know who the fuck that is.
I had no idea. It took me like a long time to figure out that I actually had heard of the Blade before as Pepper Parks. Plus, what was his name in Impact? Didn't he have a different name in Impact too?
I forget, but like he had a gimmick where he was attempting to marry like every woman on the roster.
I didn't watch any of this, but I would hear about it.
Yeah. Yeah, I know he was in Impact. I know he was Pepper Parks for like 5 minutes, but then he changed his name. And if Google helps me
Braxton
out here,
Sutter.
Yes, Braxton Sutter. What a name!
Like, what kind of name was that? There was a period in the mid 2000s that Impact names got more ridiculous than NXT names.
It was like that 2016, 2017 era where they went from rating all of the WWE mid-carders to rating all the NXT mid-carders. Because that's when they brought in the Legionnaires, Sylvester Laforte and Marcus Louis, but they weren't the Legionnaires. They were managed by Al Snow too. Like, let me see, Baron Dax and Basil Baraka. they had
Fuck kind of names.
they had a pay-per-view match against Grado and Mahabali Shira.
Well, that sounds like a match worth paying for.
Also, James Storm defeated Braxton Sutter. Eli Drake defeated Bram to retain the King of the Mountain Championship. EC3 defeated Mike Bennett. Jeff Hardy defeated Broken Matt in a Full Metal Mayhem match. Decay defeated the Bromans. And Lashley defeated Drew Galloway by technical submission to win the TNA World Heavyweight title. This, by the way, Slammiversary 2016.
Wow.
This was after 3 years of harassing the guy who ran TNA promotions. I was able to get Drew Galloway on my podcast, which was also like the last episode ever of my podcast. So I went out on a bang.
There you go. That's how you do it. By the way, Collision looks pretty good tonight. The Collision that is coming on in about an hour for us, but will have been 3 days ago by the time anybody hears this.
It's funny, I saw the spoilers online, but I didn't actually bother reading them.
I'm not looking at spoilers. I'm looking at the card on Cage Match. Cage Match has a very handy button where you can click to look at the card instead of the results if it's a show that you want to watch and haven't yet. We got Christopher Daniels versus Jack Perry. We got the Premier Athletes and the Beast Mordos against Hologram, Kyle O'Reilly, and Martin Briscoe. Anthony Henry against Wheeler Yuta. Commander and Private Party against question mark, and question mark.
Oh, nice.
The Bang Bang Gang against Cage of Agony. Serena Deeb against Yuka Sakazaki. Queen Aminata against Robin Renegade. And FTR against Grizzled Young Veterans, which that should be a hell of a match.
That is a lot of matches in a 2-hour show.
There's usually there's usually about 7 on a Collision.
I'll take your word for it.
I'm a collider from day one, baby.
I was, but then, I ended up doing many other things with my life on a Saturday night. Much like how usually I'm not that bored to watch Rampage on Friday nights.
I usually am. You want to tell us about your plans tonight? I've heard that you do have plans tonight. Do anything special? I'm
going to a drag show because our local gay club. Here's a fucking story for you. So our local gay club, the people who owned it decided to retire last year, and after some shenanigans, it was eventually bought by 3 people who spent a year remodeling it. And part of the issue is that the woman who used to own the bar that retired, it's important to keep reminding you that they retired. She's refusing to sell her liquor license or otherwise give it up. So they're unable to get a new liquor license. So that's kind of what took them so long to reopen. And so now they're just selling mocktails because it just opened yesterday. And then tonight's the first drag show there. I will say they do make a pretty mean mocktail.
You can do what my wife does and slip in a little flask.
Somebody actually asked me that because I was trying to tell friends of mine about the drag show tonight, and I was telling them, well, it's alcohol free, yada yada yada. They're like, well, can you bring in your own? I'm like, technically, you're not supposed to.
That's why you do it surreptitiously.
I always love that word, surreptitiously. It's a good word.
Good word. Great word.
All right. So I think now that we've managed to get this over the hour mark, I think now we can call it a day.
Okay. Have a good time at the drag show. Sounds like a good time.
I will. And thank everyone for listening, and we'll talk to you again in 7 days.
Bye.